Pediatric Speech Sister Show. I am so excited to have our guest on today. We have Ashley Fairley, aka Ashley OT, on here. And as you see by her luscious locks, I'm so excited to be talking to her about embracing natural Black hair, not just in speech pathology, not just in occupational therapy, but all across healthcare in professional settings. So, Ashley, I'm going to go ahead and read your fabulous bio and let me know if I missed anything at all. She is
Okay.
a pediatric occupational therapist who's been working with the pediatric population going on 10 years now, working with children who have developmental delays, autism, sensory processing, and other childhood disorders. Outside of her daily work with children, she also has a YouTube channel dedicated to educating parents as well as a coaching program for fellow OTs. Outside of her OT role, she loves traveling, dancing, reading, and trying new restaurants. Ashley, did I miss anything at all?
Nope, that was good. Thank you for that intro. And thank you for having me here today. I'm excited about this conversation we're going to have.
Yes, and me too. And shout out to you for your beautiful work life balance that we're all just trying to get to in this life.
I'm trying to. Trying.
Actually, one thing I always ask my guests is what are your why or what is your why? Not only why did you join your profession, but what gets you up every day?
I would say my why, I guess, I mean, being in the healthcare setting in general, my why is like to help as many people as I can while I'm still here and while I have the energy and the gifts to do what I do. So I feel like my why is to help others. Also, my why, I always think about my younger family members. And my goddaughter and my friends' children. So I guess my why is also being an example and a role model for them. So just letting them know, anything is possible. They can set their mind to whatever it is that they want to do, and just to not let any barriers or anything kind of stop them from achieving those things they want to do. So I feel like that is my
Wow. And as you're talking, I mean, I know that you pointed it to family, but I'm already just thinking how you're such an inspiration to people, even in your industry.
thank
Before we went live, we started talking about graduate students or just the new generation of healthcare professionals. And so while we're on the topic of embracing your natural hair, can you kind of tell us what you were about to tell me about why it would be important to even bring this topic up?
Because I feel like for so long, I guess, especially for me, it took a while to get to that point of being able to embrace your natural hair and be comfortable with your natural hair, especially because I'll use myself as an example. I've always worked as the only Black therapist, let alone OT, but Black therapist in general, in the settings that I've worked in. And
Mhm.
so just being able to not limit yourself, not hide your true identity. I feel like that's going to be super important for yourself, but it's also very important for the profession. And it's also very important for the clients and the patients that you're working with, because we all need to embrace and accept each other's differences. And I feel like we don't need to hide our true selves to be professionals.
Absolutely. How would you say that with your journey of self acceptance has supported you in your role as a clinician?
I would say, I mean, I feel like it's supported me in a positive way. I feel like maybe like most people at first, it was very like, oh, I don't know if I want to, rock my natural hair. Because I always had it in the back of my mind, like most people probably at first, like wearing straight hair is what's considered appropriate or considered the norm. And so when I decided to make that change and to like show up to work one day with box braids for the first time, I was like, oh man, how is this gonna, how are they gonna respond to it? But I got positive responses. And then I worked with the population that I worked with was mostly like Caucasian. It was a few like Black and Latino here and there, but mostly Caucasian families. And so that was another thing I had in the back of my mind, right, was like, first of all, you're getting a Black therapist. And second of all, now your Black therapist is wearing braids. So how are you going to perceive me, you know? But some things that happened that I really wasn't expecting was like sometimes the families would come back the next week and these little girls would have braids in their hair. And it'd be like, Miss Ashley had braids, so you know they wanted to wear their braids too. So I felt like, thank God I did what I did, and I wasn't too afraid because now you know I'm expanding their horizons and showing them it's okay to be different. You know, so I feel like it's been positive. You know, of course there were some times when things were said, but I'm sure we'll get into that. But overall, I feel like it's been a positive journey.
So if I can ask, and yes, we definitely will get into that. So don't even let me forget that if I do. But how would you describe your journey? So I know that you said that you did have those things in the back of your mind, and even by showing up, you noticed that you were getting good feedback, and so that was really helpful. But could you kind of walk us through how internally you overcame those feelings to even step in the door, or even to set that appointment to get your braids done?
Yes. So I feel like to get to that point, I probably should backtrack and talk about like my personal experience with my natural hair before the professional part kicks in.
Please.
So personally, I feel so I always had natural hair. I would say up until high school. And I moved around a lot when I was younger. So sometimes I was at like an all white, predominantly white school. A couple times I was in a predominantly Black school, then an all white school, you know, so I was kind of back and forth. And I feel like that played a role too in my acceptance of my hair, depending on which setting, you know, I was in. But like high school was kind of when I really started noticing, you know, and it was only because um there was a group of girls, Black girls, and I remember them saying like, "Oh, you need a perm, or you should just get a perm," you know. And before then, I had never really even thought about it. It never really crossed my mind. The only thing I thought about that I knew was annoying for me was because of my hair texture. When I was younger, and my mom would like straighten or flat iron my hair, if I step outside and it's like 1 ounce of humidity, yep, every time. And so that's the only thing I'm like, man, my hair like gets on my nerves. But other than that, like I didn't really have a issue with my own hair. But like fast forward when I got to high school, it became a thing because all the girls were having relaxers and perms and all of that at that time. And so they're like, you should just get one. You should just get a relaxer. And at first I was very like resistant to it, like, man, no, I don't need that, you know. And then, you know, the more people talk, it starts to sink in. You start questioning yourself, like, man, do I need to get one? Should I? And so I did. I convinced my mom, and because I was like, well, if I get one, you know, I won't have to flat iron my hair as much, or it won't poof up every time I walk outside. And so that's when that happened. So I feel like I kept a relaxer, and I didn't get them often, but I did get one. And I kind of kept it up throughout high school and like my early college days. And then I would say when I got to grad school, that's when I kind of decided like I didn't want it anymore. Like I was just gonna revert back and do the whole natural thing again. And so in grad school, once again, only Black really in my class, my OT class, and majority of the school too. But even then, I didn't really feel like negative about my hair. But once I got out of grad school and started like OT, like my first job, that's when it hit me. And I went back to those days of high school when I heard the voices of like, oh, you should wear your hair straight, you need a perm, blah, blah, blah. So once I got into my professional role, like I didn't get a relaxer again, but then I was like, I have to wear my hair straight to work. I got to wear my hair straight to this interview. You know, that's the only way to look professional or to be accepted. And I did that for a while. Like, that's how I wore my hair. It was always straight and down and all of that. And then I think the turning point for me was summertime. And I'm like, I'm hot. And I'm sick of having my hair every day. So I'm like, I want to get braids. Like, you know, But then I'm thinking to myself, like, shoot, can I get braids? Like, is this gonna be looked down upon or accepted in this field where it's literally just me? I'm the only Black person in this field, and or not in the field, but at the setting I was working in. And so it took me a while to make that appointment to get those braids because I'm going back and forth. Like, it's going to be professional. Are people going to say something? Is my manager going to say something to me? And so I feel like I just was like, you know what? I don't want to do and think and be like this. I'm going to be an OT moving forward. And I don't want to have to like limit myself or not express myself with my hair just to kind of fit in.
Right.
And that's kind of like what motivated me to just kind of do it anyway. Cause I'm like, I'm just going to do it and see what happens. It's either going to be good or it's going to be bad, but I think I would regret it if I didn't do it. So I just made that decision to go ahead and do it.
So thank you for that story, first of all. I'm sure a lot of us can relate. I mean, I was hearing your perm story and I was just telling you how I grew up in Oklahoma. And also my best friend would always get perms. She got perms since like maybe the third grade. So I remember it was the fifth grade for me and I was ready to get a perm. So I really had to beg my mom to get a perm. Honestly, I wish I didn't because yes, it looked really cute in my fifth grade photos. My hair was nice and long and luscious, but I started continuing to get perms and I also didn't wrap my hair at night. I didn't take care of it. And my hair just broke off slowly, slowly, slowly. So I mean,
Yeah.
no shade on perms. I think perms are another just great hairstyle that Black women have the option of wearing, but
Right.
it didn't work for me. So
Yeah.
let me ask you this, and now I'm happy I remember. So, what was your feedback when you did go into the office? I know that you had some clients who were thrilled that you got braids, and then what was the other response that you wanted to mention?
So I would say initially it was positive, right? My coworkers who were all white women, they were like, "Oh my God," it was almost as if they had never seen a Black person with braids before because it was like, "Oh my God, look at your hair," like that whole thing. And then my manager, like she didn't really say much about it at all. It seemed positive, people were like, "Oh my gosh, I really love your hair. It's so nice. It's so pretty, blah, blah, blah." And then as time moved on, certain, I don't even know how to explain it. I'm trying to, but
Mhm.
sometimes I would be like side eye because like sometimes I would take my braids out, right? And then my hair would go, I would wear it like this. And then like a few weeks later, I would put my braids back in. And then they would be like, "Oh my gosh, your hair grew so fast." And I'm like, now
Mhm. Mhm.
know,
Yeah, yeah.
my hair did go from like this lane to like down my back, like in a matter of like 3 weeks. Come on now.
Yeah.
Or I remember one time, like I wore my hair like this, but it was like in like those rod curls,
Mhm.
like flexi
The flexi
rods.
wrap. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember somebody making a comment like, "Oh, it reminds me of like Annie," or I forgot. I think that's the little movie
Yeah.
girl with the curly hair.
Really.
Or
Uh-huh.
Annie. Yeah. So it was like, "Oh, you look like Annie." And I'm like, "No, I don't. I look like myself. I just got curly hair." So it's like things like that sometimes where it's just like, you know. Or I remember just wearing my natural hair one time, and then I think I had like one of those U part wigs that is like it
Mm.
was really curly and long, and then
Uh-huh.
that's when people that I never really talked to before was like, "Oh my God, look at you, look at your hair," and I'm like, "But you didn't say
Mhm.
that yesterday about me," like when I had this, So it was kind of like I didn't get any true like negative like, "Oh, you can't wear your hair like this to work," but then there were also those little side comments that you knew it was like and a big deal in a sense, it wasn't like not noticeable.
And that makes me think because obviously to us we recognize that they're microaggressions. It's like I mean even the comment like oh my gosh your hair's grown so fast, and then when
Right.
you getting a new part wig it's like wow all of a sudden you're just like this goddess. It's what it feels
Right.
like. And so my question is, if you were to just have an education moment for people who may have made those comments in the past but didn't realize how they could be harmful, what would you say? Like, what would you have said to those colleagues if you felt like you could educate them?
Yeah, so it's funny you say that because I did have an opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my coworkers, that were like so like taken aback and like thrilled and making comments about like when I had the braids at the time. I actually sat them down and I'm like, I'm going to talk to you guys about Black hair, and over lunch, that's what we did. Like I sat them down and we talked about it. Like I talked about how diverse our hair is. I talked about my personal like issues. I'm like, ladies, it's hot outside and I don't have time to do my hair. And when I can't wash my hair every day like you guys wash your hair because it's just not going to work for me. So these braids are like a protective style. I kind of just went through like some standard things that we as Black women, we know, but they don't know. And they were really, like I was blessed that they were like receptive of it. And they truly like were trying to understand and ask questions. So I didn't get like anybody that I felt was like just kind of about it or wasn't really receptive to the information, but I did have that opportunity to educate them. So I was happy that that moment occurred and that they were like at least willing to sit and listen and try to get an understanding at least.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, and and also excuse me, I was definitely waiting for that pause that I was telling you about, about earlier. Um, but I'm so thankful that you were blessed with that because I think a lot of us, one, we kind of have the attitude of it's not my job to educate you on this, which also makes me want to ask what made you feel empowered because I feel when people have the notion it's not my job to educate you on this. One, of course, it's valid, but also it's coming from almost like a trauma place. It's rooted in trauma. I feel like I don't even have the energy to tell you about this. So,
Right.
what was your thought process to actually just sit down and take your personal lunch hour to have
Mhm.
this conversation with your colleagues?
Well, one, honestly, I feel like if I wasn't already like comfortable with them, it may have been a different story. But these women, even though they were like a little bit older and they were white women, we had built up a good relationship while I was working there already. So it kind of made it easier, to be honest. It just made it easier for me to come forward and have that conversation with them. Now, if it was like a group of women who we weren't like cool like that, or, we really didn't have that type of bond or relationship prior to that, I don't know if I would have, honestly. I probably would have been like, whatever, they'll figure it out. But I do feel like after like reflecting on that moment, I do feel like it's important that we do, if we have the opportunity, that we do educate those who want to be educated, because not everybody wants to. But if there are people out there who do care enough about it, then I feel like it's a good opportunity to shed light on that. Because, like I said before, like most of the community and where I was working, it was all white. So I'm like, who are they going to get this education from? I'm there. So, and I got the hair, so I might as well let them know. Because otherwise, I don't, who else are they going to talk to about it? They may continue on with those comments and things like that and not realize that it could be offensive.
Mhm.
So like that's something, going back to the previous question you had, that's something I would say to those individuals who say those comments or things like that. Like Black hair is like a whole issue. Like this is why you have a whole series on it, because it's just such a deep rooted topic. And I just feel like there's just so much that comes along with it. So it's better to not like make, I mean, of course you can compliment women on their hair, but like certain comments like that, I feel like keep it to yourself, because it could be very offensive and you don't even realize why it is. Like you may have good intentions, but because of the deep rooted trauma of Black hair and everything that the Black community has been through as a whole, like it really could be offensive. So if you're gonna ask a question, that's fine, but some of those comments you can keep them to yourself.
I like that. Gives us a little visual. Just keep it in there. So mentorship and support can be crucial for Black women navigating their professional journeys. So have you had any mentors that have helped you on this journey of embracing
Mm-mm.
your career? And how would you go about mentoring somebody then in this case?
So are you talking about just professionally or just in general?
In general, really, yeah.
So I guess I would just mentor them and just let them know, like, you embracing your natural hair is for you, but you also have to think about the people after you or the people that are looking up to you, or even like the clients that you're dealing with, right? Because let's say, for example, you have a client that's rocking braids, right? You guys just might make that instant connection and that rapport based off the fact that you're not afraid to wear your hair, and they have their hair a certain way. Or like let's say the OTs that are students now or about to graduate, if they see another Black therapist who's not afraid to rock their hair, then they may not be afraid either. So I would just
Mm,
say, think about how you can be a positive impact on other people if you're like hesitant to like wear your natural hair. Like I said, I didn't have any mentors per se. And when I decided to, stick to the whole natural look, like this was prior to me even knowing about the whole natural hair movement and all the YouTubers and all of that. Like this was before that. So once I learned about that, I was like, oh, this is great. That motivated me even more to want to wear my hair natural because I saw a community online now of other women around the world doing it.
uh-huh.
Um, so I feel like that is like a privilege now that I didn't have when I decided to make that transition. But a lot of women now, you see it online and on social media all the time with women wearing like their natural hair. And even lately, I've been seeing like a lot of Black OTs get their doctorates and they're wearing dreadlocks and their weaves and everything. And I'm like, yay.
Go us.
Yeah, so that's what I would say to them is just think about, you don't want to limit yourself, but also think about how positive it could be for you to impact other people around you.
And thank you, Ashley. I'm thinking about, I have in mind, like, we can call them avatars, or really just a person who might be listening to this who is like, okay, this conversation completely motivated me to take out even my protective styles and go on my whole natural hair journey. What would you recommend for them to get started?
I would recommend, I mean, to get started, I would
Mhm.
just say go for it. I mean, it's like hard to just like I would say like don't be in your head too much. I would say start there. I would also say try to understand like if there is any like trauma or if there is any like past experiences that you personally have had that may be like stopping you or kind of giving you pause when it comes to, letting yourself go back natural. And if it
Right.
is, that's what you can analyze and see like why are you feeling that way. But I feel like the only way to truly like overcome it is to just go for it and do it.
And thank you. I would also say, if I could just add to that, just do your research too. Just do your
Yeah.
research on different styles that are possible. I mean, Ashley, I'm looking at you and I can tell that you take good care of your hair. I was about to ask you what your conditioner and your hair routine is. So if you can drop that, let me know. I'll share it with the community. And go ahead and share now, girl. Let me know. What's your routine?
So, girl, routine. Okay. I don't really have a routine per se. I'm trying to get back on a routine, but this is honestly wash, conditioned, and like a braid out. Like that's
Okay.
what that. Yeah, it's a braid out. I try to do my leave-in conditioner, and like my oils for like my ends so they don't dry out, and trims too. I just got my hair trimmed, so I would say I try to keep it as simple as possible because I have been that girl to watch all the YouTube videos and do all 35 steps. I've done that. And I'm like, I can't do this every time. It's not sustainable. So now it's just keeping your hair clean, keeping it moisturized, keeping your ends trimmed in some type of protective style, or I just kind of wear a braid out sometimes. Or a high bun is usually how you'll see my hair most of the time.
I appreciate the idea of sticking to the basics because I haven't become the YouTube girlies who have. I mean, it's amazing. They do it so quickly. I mean, my friend Jordan, she's able to even just braid her hair. She just
Yeah.
braids her hair. And she's like, yep, new hairstyle. And I'm like, let me pay my $250 for my braids and then I'll be back in
Right.
6. So yeah, I appreciate that sentiment. So we are definitely talking about a diversity topic. How would you say that we can be more inclusive when it comes to Black hair and healthcare industries?
So I feel like in healthcare, I feel like in like there's always the higher ups management, and there's not a lot of us there. And I feel like we would benefit so much more if there were. But because there's not, I feel like something that can happen to really help healthcare institutions is having some type of diversity training, some type of like cultural awareness training. And those trainings need to be led by the people that you're talking about, because I've been to diversity trainings and it's like a white person leading it. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, so you need somebody, you need people that are actually of diversity to be leading these diversity trainings and these cultural awareness trainings so that we can share like our firsthand experiences and things like that. I feel like these healthcare institutions need to have a safe space, an open space for individuals of all different races to kind of share their experiences and share like things that may be offensive, or share ideas for like different policies to put in place to stop like the discrimination, or at least have like a zero tolerance policy for it. Or even like a safe space for us to share our experiences with it without being like reprimanded or looked at a certain way, or is the boss gonna do something if I tell so there needs to be some type of safety measures put in place to kind of help with that. And I feel like it starts with open conversation, because we know amongst ourselves how we're feeling, but I feel like hopefully we can get to the point where we can start sharing with our white colleagues or other colleagues just like about our hair and about how that all works and how it makes us feel and all of that. And I just feel like having open and honest conversations is where it's going to start helping us the most.
I know you gave us a lot of what we would ask for our non-Black colleagues. One thing I'm keeping in mind is I intern a few students and they say that they're like the head of their DEI committees, but they've been getting pushback when they bring up DEI topics. So what would and obviously there's ego clashes in there. It's hard to be looked at, just putting myself in the shoes of someone who I guess it's on the other side of the coin. It could be hard to hear that you might be doing something wrong. So what would you recommend in that case for someone listening to this who is non-Black, obviously an ally or wants to be an ally, but who still has trouble with that ego or rage or that guilt?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say just remember, like, it's not anything to make you feel guilty or make you feel like ashamed, or it's not like a personal attack. It's just education in a sense, so that and the fellow colleagues know what we may be dealing with or how we're feeling and how we're experiencing things that you may not ever be able to have that relationship with or be able to experience in your life. So it's nothing to be afraid of, and it's nothing for you to take personally. It's just so that we can bring more awareness to the issues that we're facing and dealing with. That's what I would tell them. Like, don't take it personal. We're just trying to educate, just trying to make it known.
That's all. That's all.
Exactly. Exactly. That's all we're trying to do. So,
Well, thank you so much, Ashley, for coming on the show. One thing I always like to ask my guests at the very end is what changes you would like to see. I know we touched on the DEI topic, but is there anything else that you would like to share?
I think I would just say for more Black women to start embracing their hair, no matter how you choose to wear it. Like I know even within the Black community, there, was some stigma or has been stigma, like if you're natural versus not natural or whatever the case may be. But I think in general, we all should just start accepting our hair and other people's hair and however you want to wear your hair that makes you feel comfortable and it makes you feel like that's you. So I feel like more of us should embrace that. And I know we were talking about and hitting on it earlier that I know in occupational therapy, it's only I think 5% of us are Black to begin with. So I feel like the more that we can express ourselves and show our identity, the better, because it's only a small amount of us anyway. And so the people that are out there, or the women or the Black men that are out there that are going to show themselves and express themselves, I think is just going to help with that inclusion portion and the diversity portion of our or of our therapy and occupations and our career in general. So I would just say, please start embracing it. And if you're hesitant, I get it, you know, but just think about how much of a positive influence it could have on others.
Thank you, Ashley. And I agree, it'll definitely send just a ripple effect. Like they call it natural hair movement for a reason. So
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And I think about too, like I have a goddaughter, she's 9. And then I have like 2 of my best friends, they have daughters. One is 3, one is 16, and they all have natural hair. And I love that. Like I love that their moms are not like enforcing them to wear their hair straightened or wear it a certain way or get a relaxer or anything like that. Cause it's teaching them to embrace who they are. And that's another reason too I do it, because I'm like, I would never want my goddaughter to look up to me and be like, oh, the only way I'm going to be accepted in this world is if I do X, Y, and Z. So I want to leave that positive impression on them too, that it's okay and your hair is beautiful and you're beautiful. So you don't have to like put yourself in a box to be accepted.
yes. Well, thank you so much, Ashley. I'm in my prayers that people are listening to this and watching the replay and are finding some sort of healing or at least direction in where they
Yeah.
can go. Where can people find you if they have any more questions, even if it's related to OT things and natural hair?
So I'm mostly on Instagram, Ash the OT. I do have a YouTube channel as well under the same handle, Ash the OT. Or my email, if you need to send me a private message, it's Ashley at playforpurposep.com. And I don't know if you can like type that somewhere so people can see it, but
I'll also put it in here.
okay. So yeah, those are the primary places I'm at. I'm everywhere, but you can get in touch with me better through Instagram or email.
So thank you so much, Ashley. I would love to have you back on the show in the future and definitely learn more about your occupational therapy and coaching journey
Yes.
if you're willing to. I think that SLPs and OT should definitely connect more outside of even just the clinic space.
I
So about it.
I agree. And I'm so happy that you invited me here. Like, to be honest, I don't know any other like Black speech therapists, and I'm always trying to connect with other Black speech therapists. So I'm happy that you found me. So now I have that connection with you now.
Oh, yes, sister. All right. Well, thank you all so much for coming on live. Be sure to tune in next week. We'll be talking to Jackie Rodriguez about bilingualism across lifespan. Until then, bye.